My husband said he was just fixing something at my best friend's place. Hours later I saw them at a restaurant. Her hand on his eyes avoiding mine. Sophie and I were the kind of friends people envied. Sleepovers well into adulthood, matching necklaces, the kind of bond where we finished each other's sentences. She stood beside me on my wedding day as my maid of honor, beaming as I married Adrian. I thought I had everything, a loyal husband, a best friend I could trust. But I didn't realize, those two things were about to destroy each other. At first I loved how well Adrian and Sophie got along. It felt like the perfect balance. My best friend and my husband sharing jokes over dinner, helping each other set up surprise parties for me, swapping silly memes in our group chat. But slowly the balance started tipping. Sophie began coming over more often even when I wasn't home. Adrian would tell me she just stopped by to drop something off, or needed help with her car. It all sounded harmless until I realized she was spending hours at the house for reasons I could never fully pin down. Their conversations became their own inside world. I'd walk into the room and find them laughing, only for the laughter to die as soon as I appeared. Whenever I asked what was so funny, Sophie would just shake her head with a smirk. Nothing you'd get. I brushed it off. After all, we were all friends. But there's a difference between sharing a friendship and sharing each other in ways you shouldn't. It was little things at first. Too small to confront without sounding paranoid. Sophie started wearing perfume I'd never smelled on her before. Light, expensive, the kind Adrian once complimented in passing. Adrian, who barely noticed when I wore something new, suddenly seemed to notice everything about her. Then there were the messages. Whenever Sophie texted me, her replies came in quick bursts. But when I was with her, I'd catch her phone lighting up with Adrian's name. Messages she'd read and then flip her phone over like it was nothing. I noticed how often Adrian brought her up in casual conversation. She's been having a hard time lately, we should invite her over more. She said she's thinking of changing jobs, maybe I can help her with her resume. Always thoughtful, always helpful, maybe too helpful. And then there were the moments I couldn't quite explain. Like the night I came home early from work and found them sitting on the couch, heads close together, the TV on but neither watching. They jumped when they saw me like kids caught doing something wrong. Sophie laughed it off. Adrian changed the subject. Each time I told myself I was imagining things. But deep down, I wasn't sure I wanted to know the truth. The excuses started slipping in so casually I almost didn't catch them at first. Sophie would cancel plans with me last minute. I'm so sorry, Adrian's helping me fix something at my apartment. You know I'm useless with tools. I'd laugh, shrug it off, thinking it was sweet of him to help her. But then she'd post pictures of takeout on her Instagram stories. 2 plates, 2 drinks, no tools in sight. Adrian started coming home later than usual. He said, always work. Except one night I called his office and the receptionist told me he'd left hours earlier. When I asked him about it, he smiled tiredly. Oh, I grabbed dinner with Sophie. She had a rough day. It sounded harmless, but I noticed he didn't meet my eyes when he said it. Even small details started to feel strange. Sophie suddenly had the same brand of watch I had once wanted for Adrian. One he claimed was too expensive right now. She began repeating little phrases Adrian used, inside jokes they didn't share with me. And one day I noticed her wearing a hoodie that looked awfully familiar, dark gray, slightly faded at the cuffs just like Adrian's. Whenever I hinted that they seemed closer lately, both of them laughed it off with the same line. Oh, come on, you know we're just friends. And for the longest time I wanted to believe them. I really did. It happened on a rainy Thursday night, the kind of night where everything feels heavier than it should. Adrian texted me that he'd be late again. Another work emergency, he said. I almost didn't think twice about it, until I remembered his late work nights had become far too common lately. I decided to surprise him, maybe bring him dinner, maybe just see him for a few minutes before going home. But when I got to his office, the parking lot was nearly empty. The lights in his department were off, and his car wasn't there. I tried calling him. No answer. I tried Sophie. No answer. That sinking feeling in my chest wouldn't go away. On my drive back home, I passed a quiet little restaurant tucked away on the other side of town, the kind of place you only know if you've been before. And there, parked just outside, was Adrian's car. Right beside it, Sophie's. My hands shook as I parked down the street. Through the rain-speckled window I could see them inside, not across from each other but side by side in a booth. Sophie's hand rested on his arm. His head leaned close to hers. saying something that made her smile in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. They looked like a couple. My couple. I sat there, the rain drowning out everything, my pulse roaring in my ears. And for the first time, I couldn't explain it away. I don't remember deciding to get out of the car. One moment I was gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles hurt. The next I was standing in the rain, pushing open the door to that little restaurant. The bell above the door jingled. Heads turned. But all I saw was them. Sophie's laughter died instantly when her eyes met mine. Adrian froze, his hand still on hers, his mouth half open like he had a lie ready but couldn't quite get it out fast enough. I walked up to their table, each step louder than the rain pounding outside. "Don't stop on my account," I said, my voice cold enough to make the waitress retreat to the counter. "Please, keep going. I'd hate to ruin your romantic evening." Sophie pulled her hand back, fumbling for her bag. "It's not what you think," she started. Cut her off. "Oh, Sophie, don't insult me. You're wearing his hoodie. You're holding his hand. And you're sitting here in the one place you thought I'd never look." Adrian tried to speak then, but I turned on him so fast he actually flinched. "All those late nights? All those, helping Sophie with her problems? I must be the dumbest person alive for believing you." The restaurant was silent. Everyone was watching. I didn't care. Sophie's voice was barely a whisper now. "It just happened." I laughed, sharp, humorless. "No, Sophie. Tripping over your own feet just happens. This took planning." Adrian opened his mouth again, but I didn't give him the chance. I walked out without looking back, the sound of their silence following me into the rain. The rain didn't feel cold as I walked to my car. It felt cleansing, like the sky was crying the tears I couldn't bring myself to shed yet. I drove home in silence, every streetlight blurring through my windshield. The house felt strange when I walked in. Too quiet, too empty, like it already knew something had broken beyond repair. I sat on the edge of the bed for hours, staring at the framed wedding photo on my dresser. Adrian smiling, Sophie just behind me holding my veil. Both of them standing so close, like the betrayal had been waiting there all along, just out of sight. My phone buzzed over and over. Calls from Adrian, messages from Sophie. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Every time their names lit up my screen, it felt like salt grinding deeper into the wound. That night I packed a bag. Not because I was running away, but because I refused to sleep in the bed that had been theirs behind my back. I left my rings on the dresser, right beside the photo, like a silent goodbye they'd both eventually see. I didn't know exactly what would happen next. Divorce papers, ugly conversations, maybe public humiliation. But I knew one thing for certain. They'd underestimated me. And I was done being quiet. The next morning I woke up in a small hotel room across town, my bag still half unpacked at the foot of the bed. I hadn't slept much, but my head was clear, clearer than it had been in months. Adrian kept calling. Sophie texted again, long paragraphs that started with, "Please," and ended with, "You have to understand." I ignored them both. Said I called my lawyer. By the time the sun was fully up, I had already frozen our joint accounts and changed the locks on the house. The place wasn't just mine legally, it was mine in every way that mattered now. And neither of them would walk back in without going through me first. I didn't send threats. I didn't yell. I didn't even block their numbers. No, I wanted them to keep reaching out. I wanted them to squirm every time they saw my name pop up in their call history unanswered. That weekend I went to see mutual friends. Not to gossip, but to make sure the truth came out in my own voice before Sophie could twist it. I didn't need to raise my voice. The look in my eyes was enough for everyone to know something serious had happened. By Monday their perfect little lie had cracked wide open. People stopped looking at Sophie the same way. Adrian's phone calls became less about apologies and more about desperation. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I had the upper hand. It happened 2 weeks later. I was coming back from the grocery store when I saw them both standing outside my house. Adrian looked tired, almost worn down. Sophie, well, she looked smaller somehow, like the confidence she always carried had been stripped away. "Please," Adrian said the second I stepped out of my car. "We just need to talk." Sophie stayed quiet, her eyes searching my face like she was hoping to find even a crack of sympathy. I stood there on the driveway, my keys in one hand, my bags in the other, and for a moment I just looked at them. These two people who once meant everything to me and now meant nothing. "You want to talk?" I said finally, my voice calm. "Fine. Here it is." I stepped closer, just enough for them to see the steel in my eyes. You made your choices. You both had a chance to be honest with me, to respect me, and you chose each other instead. So here's the truth. You don't get me, you don't get my forgiveness, and you don't get another chance. Adrian opened his mouth, but I cut him off with a sharp shake of my head. I'm not angry anymore, I said. And that's worse for you because it means I don't care. I don't care about your excuses, your guilt, or your futures. Sophie finally spoke, her voice cracking. We didn't mean for it to happen like this. I gave a humorless laugh. You didn't mean for me to find out, you mean? Big difference. I turned, walked up the steps to my front door and looked back just once. You can both leave now. And if I see either of you here again, I promise it won't be this polite. Then I closed the door. And for the first time in months I felt like my life was mine again. As the lock clicked behind me, silence filled the house. Not the heavy, suffocating silence of betrayal, but a lighter one. A silence I could finally breathe in. I looked around at the life I had left. The rooms were the same. The walls hadn't changed. But everything felt different now. Because this time, there were no lies sitting at my table, no deceit sleeping in my bed. I made myself a cup of tea, sat by the window, and watched as Sophie and Adrian's silhouettes disappeared down the street. Not as my best friend and my husband, but as two strangers who had no place in my story anymore. And I realized something I wish I'd learned sooner. Sometimes losing people is the best way to find yourself again. And that's exactly what I intended to do. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories.